Good afternoon and welcome to the DFS Army YouTube channel. I am Razzle11 and you can find me on X at Razzle11Grinds. Going to take a look at the pitching for today, the 18th of June. It is Tuesday. We have a 10-game main slate in front of us. Some potential weather issues in Minnesota, I believe, is the main one. But also there's just a ton of warm weather and wind blowing out across the country. Looks like we could see some more offensive explosions. Some questionable pitching ish, I guess. A handful of guys that can be dominant, but also can be blown up. So it makes for a really interesting GPP slate for us. As always, this is a first look at pitching options. I'll be looking at DraftKings as that is where the majority of my action is. If you're a FanDuel player, I would cut my pitcher pool in half or even to a third, depending, just because you don't have to be as creative, since pricing for stacking is not quite as tight. We always want to play the guys with the biggest upside. We need raw points at the end of the night. We aren't searching for value, a value return like an NFL or NBA might look for. So, without further ado, let's dig into the actual pitching here. Tanner Houck's been very impressive this season. I I think he's got a ton of upside. He's coming off a decent start against Philadelphia. He did beat them. Uh, it's the ability to absolutely dominate. Actually, dominated one of the toughest offenses to dominate in Cleveland. Just plenty of upside. Now Toronto isn't a huge K squad, but he's been spectacular on the road. I think his K prop was 6.5. It might be 5.5. Actually, it looks like it dropped to 4.5. That seems really low for Tanner Houck. Obviously, has not faced Toronto yet this year, but he hasn't been under 4.5 in over a month. Um, Three of his starts at 14, so 11 of his 14 starts has been 5+ strikeouts. Uh, Juice is obviously on the over on that one, so very interesting. I assume he's an underdog. Toronto at home with Bassett pitching. Actually, Hulk is a favorite, a -122 favorite. Lowest total of the game of the slate. Lowest total game of the slate. Sorry, I can't speak. At 7.5. Definitely a ton of upside on the slate, and that's what we're really looking for. Logan Webb, couple issues here on the road, where he's not as strong. His K numbers are up on the road, but just a road pitcher, not as strong overall. And we have Wrigley wind blowing out at 16 miles an hour to center field. Logan Webb is a ground ball guy, not a huge K guy. Um, so I guess there's a route to a performance. K prop of 5.5, juices on the under. Um, Really, probably going to end up in that 4 to 6K range. Just not sure he has the upside that we're looking for, but he might not be bad. I think if I'm going to use a pitcher in this win game, it's probably going to be Steele. But even then, some of the Giants guys have started to hit left-handed pitching pretty well. Ramos, Slater's been heating up. Flores is always dangerous. Chapman can hit left-handed pitching. So again, it feels more like a game stack from the bat standpoint. But we do know the Cubs have struggled offensively, so Logan Webb might end up in the pool. I'm not really sure yet. Uh, I'm hoping to not have him, but if it's going to be somebody that makes my pool complete at around 8 pitchers for the slate, then so be it, and I'll live with it. Framber Valdez, not a huge K guy generally. Um, hasn't been as consistent this year. Used to be a guy that we just plug in for a quality start. K prop of 5.5. Juice is on the over. He is a -192 favorite. Coming off of a rough start. Uh, his starts, like I mentioned, have been really all over the place, but I'm interested. He's throwing the ball better on the road, which is where he's at now. Some of the White Sox guys have turned it around a little bit, especially against left-handed pitching. But with that said, there's just so much upside for Framber that I just can't deny using him. Pablo Lopez has not looked the part of a Cy Young guy like he did last year. K's have been there, but he has made mistakes. Mistakes are big. He's had a couple decent starts recently. I certainly like picking on Tampa Bay with pitching, so he is a minus 180 favorite. K prop of 6.5, juice is slightly on the under, but 6.5 is the highest K prop on the slate. I looked at that before hitting record. It's not a huge K pitcher slate for us, which is a little annoying. No thanks on Nestor against Baltimore. Chris Bassett definitely in play. Boston exploded a bit last night, but Bassett traditionally gets it done. 0 1 runs allowed in 4 of his last 5 starts. K's have been a little better. Still not a huge K guy. K prop of 5.5. Like you mentioned, Houck is favored, but I think both pitchers in that game are extremely viable for us this evening. Severino probably viable. I don't really love it. Not a huge K guy any longer. Walks can be an issue, but this Texas squad has been struggling of late. He actually is a minus 115 favorite. K prop of just 4.5. Juice is actually slightly on the under, so I don't mind him. I just don't know if he has a ton of upside, and that's the problem. But we don't exactly have a ton of upside pitchers on this slate, so those last couple spots in my pitcher pool are gonna kind of come down to the wire. I'm gonna be having to do some additional research to get an idea of where I want to go. Mentioned Justin Steele earlier. He's been strong in 3 of his last 4 starts. Seems to be turning things around a little bit. Unfortunately, those 3 of 4 starts came on the road. He hasn't been as strong at home yet this season. Obviously, when blowing out, K prop of 5.5, which is decent. But man, I just don't know what to do with this game yet. I will dig in more, get an idea of where I want to go. I actually think Webb has the slightly better matchup in the game. But I mean, Steele was electric last year. Been injured a little bit this year. Maybe he is finding things out or figuring things out. But again, San Francisco has a couple guys that I really love recently, especially in Ramos. He's just been on a roll. So with the wind blowing out, kind of makes it a questionable spot. Lorenzen can allow some home runs. The Mets blew up last night. But I have a feeling people are going to be off of him because of what they saw last night from the Mets. So I am a little intrigued. K prop of just 4.5. Has just 3 strikeouts over his last 2 starts. But he's capable of doing a lot better. Obviously, threw a no-hitter last year. So he has plenty of upside. I'm going to guess he's going to end up on the outside looking in. But to me, if you compare Lorenzen and Severino, I actually think Lorenzen has more upside than Severino because he can put it together and pick up strikeouts. And he's at home, obviously. Definitely a slight increase there, but I'm not sure. Seems like there's going to be a handful of guys that are potentially in or potentially out. Like they're pretty close for me. Savali against the Twins, not going to go there. He's been knocked around a lot on the road. He has looked good in a couple of his recent starts, but he just doesn't offer a ton of upside overall. I think we shouldn't have a problem fading him because Alec Marsh is cheaper. He's been really impressive this year. Been really strong on the road. A couple of his best starts have come against the 2 best teams in the AL in Baltimore and the Yankees. Can have a home run issue. That is a worry. He is a reverse splits guy. So if we see an Oakland lineup that is left-hand heavy, I think we should be happy to use Marsh. I mean, I'm going to be happy to use Marsh either way. But if we do see a left-hand heavy lineup, I'm really going to like it. K prop of 6.5. Juice is on the under. He's a minus 130 favorite. Game total of 8, so the second lowest total on the slate as well. Uh, Definitely going to be a super popular guy for us. Walker Buehler, probably not in Coors. He's had some home run issues, walks, some lack of strikeouts, just a little too much action for me. Uh, Hopefully, he figures it out in the second half, and we can get some throwback Walker Buehler starts. Schwellenbach, I've seen some talk about him. I am a little interested. He hasn't showcased a ton of upside at the major league level yet, but he gets a pretty solid matchup. Um, and he was actually really solid against the Orioles in his last start. The strikeouts just weren't there. Um, he is a minus 166 favorite. K prop of just 4.5 with juice on the under. Like I mentioned, there isn't a ton of K upside guys on this slate, but I think Schwellenbach is certainly an option. Hogan Harris, I think, is an option as well. I know Kansas City has been somewhat dangerous, but Salvador Perez is banged up, and they just called up another catcher, so I assume Salvi's not really going to be involved tonight. His K prop is just 4.5 juice on the under. But like I mentioned, game total of just 8. He isn't a massive home dog or anything, so I think there's upside for him. Um, so I am going to include him in my initial pool. Obviously, if it comes down to having to pull a guy out, an Oakland starting pitcher probably one of the best ones to pull out of a pool, just because, uh, they're just not a good team, obviously, and we want to play for some win upside as well. Jonathan Cannon coming off his best start. I don't think I'm going to go there against Houston, but Houston's offense can be pretty weak without Tucker. Bregman, I think, has gone back to struggling. Obviously, Altuve and Jordan have been rolling, but I don't think I can use Cannon. But the thought crossed my mind, to be honest. Tobias Myers, the last 2 starts, 14 innings, just 1 run allowed. Very interested because it is against a weaker Angels lineup. He's a minus 142 favorite. K prop of just 4.5 with juice on the under, but he is showing us true upside. Has over 50 fantasy points over the last 2 starts. Went 6 innings with just 66 pitches the last time out. My guess is they did that just to take it easy on him after he threw 100 pitches the time before that. I think he's got the upside in this matchup, so I definitely want to utilize that a bit. Maybe a 15 to 20% play. I haven't really looked at potential percentages yet, but somebody I'm definitely interested in, and he's showing a little bit more upside than Schwellenbach has at this point. So, but there we have it. There's our first look at pitching. If you enjoy what I bring to you, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, turn the notification bell on, get the alert anytime we drop videos here on DFS Army. And if you want to get access to our coaches, tools, sheets, Discord, etc., I will put links in the description below. You can use promo code RAZ, that's RAZ, for 10% off monthly. And as always, best of luck, everybody.